Welcome witches to today's video, our July reading wrap up. Diving into the stats for the month, we read 12 books. We averaged 409 pages, which has increased. The one I'm excited about is we brought up our physical TBR to 74.45%, which is still quite a ways away from the 80%, but it was at 72.53%. That really attributes to the fact that I bought 2 books last month, and of those 2 books, which would have been A Very Bad Thing and Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear, I read, which helped bring that number up and kind of balance out. We kept under control in that. Average time on my TBR was 27 months. The average star was 3.4. We had a pretty good month. And again, we bought 2 new books. We spent a total of $36.24 for an average cost of $18.12, which seems like a lot, but I guess it's less than last month. We spent an average of $20.96, which is interesting. Not the cheapest books, but not the most expensive books either. I will preface that I am starving. Therefore, I may be a little bit more rushed or scatterbrained. But let's get into what you're really here for, which is the books. These are in no particular order other than how they're sitting right there. Starting with the first one, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. This is following Harry as he is going into the Triwizard Tournament. This is probably one of my least favorite of Harry Potter. Again, I know there's a lot of controversy around J.K. Rowling. I just wanted to reread all the Harry Potters this year. Originally, I was doing a comparison between what was different between the books and the movies. And I was like trying to document it. I was going to make a video, but it was running my experience of reading them. Now I just read the book and compare it to the movie as I go. I don't write it down. I don't document. I just do it in my noggin. And I enjoy that. These have a lot of nostalgia for me. I just want to read them one last time, do a comparison, enjoy it as a childhood. There is plenty of other school wizardry stories out there. My favorite is, and even YA, but my favorite is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. That's a trilogy. Absolutely fantastic. But there's plenty of others if you're not wanting to get in this, but you still want a magical school element. The next one is The Communist Manifesto. This was picked part of my TBR jar. It's one of those, like, I have it and I don't really know why. I think there was a time I wanted to read all classics. I wanted to do the Gilmore Girls thing, etc., etc. I read this literally one ear out the other. I'm not the person who's going to give you some deep, thoughtful insight into this. If you want that, there's plenty of other creators who are those people. Go find them. I absolutely was miserable the entire time I read this. I would have DNF'd it, which, okay, it's a little bit of a DNF. This has a ton of talk about the impact of this story and Karl Marx's input and Frederick Engels and all these different aspects. And really, the Communist Manifesto is like this much of it. And then even then, this is notes. So this is really the part of the Communist Manifesto. So I read just pretty much this point. I read some of this, but couldn't do it. So read literally only the portion of the Communist Manifesto. I read it / DNF'd it. The Push by Ashley Adrain. I did enjoy this. This was another one that was part of my TBR jar picks, my book. This is a thriller mystery. This woman has a very different history with mothers and family. She has a daughter, but something feels off with this daughter. And as much as she's trying to say something and she's not getting that connection, everybody's telling her like it's normal, the daughter's normal, everything's fine. But something feels off to her. She ends up having a son, and she has that very classic instant mother-child connection. And so that solidifies more for her. There's something off and wrong with my daughter, Violet. Then her son passes away, and it just feeds into that. This is so well done. I really liked the way in which it was written. She's writing this story almost to her husband. Her name's Blythe. Blythe is essentially writing this story to her husband, Fox, explaining from her side this story. There's not, it never feels like I'm not getting the truth or any unreliable narrator from that point of view. You truly feel like you're getting the right side of the story, but you're also getting to go back in time between her mother and her mother's mother and really getting this history behind the kind of complex relationship she has with being a mother and the messages of motherhood that she got. The way this leaves, I think it was done really well. I think it's hard to do that in a book. I think she did it really well, but just it keeps your mind going. And I just think this was really well executed. The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brianne Randall. This was part of my 25 in 2025. Those vlogs for both TBR Jar 25 in 2025 and later some of the books I talk about in my book of the month are coming out, so keep a lookout for those. I was really disappointed in this. I was hoping for cozy fantasy romance mix. That's not what I got. I got a terrible character who wanted to just be a martyr for the sake of being a martyr. She would take the ex-boyfriend's dog and he was okay with it, but like they knew. I just think that the characters in this were awful. They were written awful. It was really exciting in the beginning for that really cozy magic with her owning a cafe shop and sprinkling in some magic within that. I don't know if I said what this is about. This is following Sadie, who believes she has to have 4 heartbreaks in order to keep her magic. You start seeing these signs that something bad's happening. She loses her grandmother, who is like the closest person. Her ex comes back to town, and also her brother, who's like estranged and ran off because he hated his magic. He wanted no part in his magic. Left, and now he's back. Just need to do a spoiler moment for me. The fact that she gives up her magic when this is everything to her, for her brother to have magic who didn't want it is just bullshit. Pisses me off. The dog thing pisses me off. Spoiler alert over, rant over, proper language used again. I absolutely despise this book. I despise the characters. I just really didn't like it. I will say the saving grace was they would have these cute little recipes in the book that tied into the story somehow. I made a couple of them. You can see that in my vlog that's coming out. Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Shauna McGuire. This is the 10th in the Wayward Children series, which is an absolutely fantastic series. It is novellas. They're so perfectly paced. They're perfectly sized. You get to dabble in each of these worlds. This is following Nadia, who she was missing her arm. She got adopted by some U.S. parents from a Russian orphanage. They come over here and they decide, you need this arm. So they give her this fake arm. She also loves turtles, and there's turtles in her backyard. So she goes into this world and she has her fake arm on, and then the turtle eats her fake arm, and there's a lot of that. Like, what is this? We identify her as needing this arm, and it's a kind of hindrance. But to her, she knows nothing else, and it isn't her. And her love of the turtles, and it all comes together. But she goes into the world with her turtles. And Nadia, you do see in the other books in the Wayward Children. This doesn't really bring in any of the others, but she is in some of the other books. So if you've read this series, you're going to have the kind of character connection with it, but I still think you're going to build that even if like you don't remember her from the other ones. I just think this is such a great series. Another vlog I did was a Do I Like This Author, where I took authors where I had multiple other books on my TBR. I started with one that I had multiple physical copies of and read them, but I hadn't read any of the books despite the fact that I had multiple of them. And that author was J.T. Ellison. One of the books was A Very Bad Thing. I feel like this might have been one of my least favorites of hers. However, it was still a 4-star. I really like this. This is following Riley as she is the journalist who is picked by this really famous author named Columbia to come on her book tour sorry if you can hear the kids in the background, on a book tour for her new novel. And they tell her story. Columbia is typically very private, doesn't share a lot. However, on the first night of her book tour, it's very choreographed. So Riley's talking to Columbia's daughter, Darian. They're not really paying attention, but then they notice that this man stands up. No words are exchanged between Columbia or the gentleman. He walks away. Columbia faints. They check her out. She's like, she's fine. They all go back to the hotel. Then Riley learns that there's maybe a stalker that Columbia and Darian are dealing with. And then the next morning they find Columbia, the author, dead. This has some predictability. There's still some twists and turns. What did it for me is the absolute ending of it was a mic drop. And I cannot believe that she would end it that way and not give us more. However, I think it was a absolute great choice. Just kind of like, oh, you think you figured it out? And then jaw drop. I really liked her writing. The pacing was always really good. It was descriptive in a way that you felt there, but it never dragged on. It's dual point of view, dual timeline in all of them. And I just really liked her writing style and her pacing. Another one by J.T. Ellison that I read was Lie to Me. At first, I thought this was going to be a little bit of a Gone Girl, but towards the end, it definitely is not a Gone Girl. There might be some parallels. This is following Sutton and Ethan. They have this very perfect life. Everything's great. They're both authors. They have very different genres. They've had a child. The child has passed away. They're in a really hard place emotionally, romantically, financially. She leaves her husband a note and says, I'm leaving. I need space. Don't come look for me. Of course, he decides, I'm going to go look for him. Everything is pointing that he did something to her and she's gone. Bodies are found. People are suspecting him. The media is all over it. There's lots of questions. This is another one. She does a really good job of keeping you on her toes, twists and turns. There's dual timelines, dual point of view. There's good pacing, good character development, good kind of just overall story and plot line. No, they're excellently done. And so let's finish with the last one. It's One of Us. This is my favorite of her. 5 stars. Love this book. Love, love, love. This is following Olivia and Park, who want to have a baby, but they're having trouble getting pregnant, so they're doing IVF. However, one day, Olivia comes down after finding out that she almost made it through her first trimester, but she miscarried. But as she's coming down to tell her husband, Park, some detectives walk in, and they're like, sir, your son has been accused of murder. And he's like, I don't have any kids. What are you talking about? Turns out he had donated his sperm back in the day, and he's finding out that he not only has a child accused of murder, but he has children coming out of the woodwork. She's blindsided. They're going through this. She's trying to figure out, do I want to have a kid with this man? Who truly is this man? How can this man have this? The twists, the turns, the thinking you're over here, and then the next second you're over there is absolutely fantastic. I don't think you're going to predict who it is or those twists. And the way it's so subtly done, but then it's just such a wham moment. Absolutely fantastic. I will say, and I say this in every review that I do, this page 10 had it just like I read it and I was like, it's from the point of view of the murderer, which I think is a very interesting way to start this. You see, it starts out from the point of view of the murderer, but you don't know who that is. And some of the things that he says about like taking away a woman being more than just an object or this thing is so accurate. It's kind of crazy. I think that page sealed it to me. I just absolutely love this book and please go read this. And if you have, did you love it as much as I did? Please tell me you did. Please, please. We'll go ahead and go back to The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This was one I was kind of curious about, but I hadn't really invested. But my sister-in-law suggested that I read it because she joined a book club where she lives. And this was one of the books that they read. They loved it. I will say for all the hype that I've seen just in general I was a little let down. Don't get me wrong. It's good. Maybe I've just read a little too many like really jaw-dropping one. This is following a girl who's 13. She goes to this camp where her parents own. She shows up missing. But the plot twist is many, many years ago, her brother went there and was never found again. This is dual timeline, dual point of view, trying to figure out, is what happened to her the same that happened to her brother, or is there something different? The clock's ticking to find her. You're seeing it from the detectives. You're seeing it from the mother. You're seeing it from the counselors, from some of the campers also. You're just seeing it from a lot of different point of views. There's lots of different layers. There's lots of other stories that are going on behind the scenes that are just back content, but do all tie in together. So I do think this is really well done. I think I just was anticipating something so much more than what it was that I was let down, but it's still very solid and I do think stands on its own. Damnation Spring by Ash Davidson. I just need to know, like, do they put a weight in this? This book is like the same like thickness as others, but this one just feels so heavy, but like in a good way. Anyways, this is a historical fiction following this logging town. And this woman's trying to have a baby. Her husband, Rich, is a logger. He ends up buying Damnation Spring, thinking he's going to make all this money, but there's a lot of, turns out, backstabbing because there's something wrong with how the logging is happening with the water and the sprays and chemicals used to kill stuff and the effects that that's having on the residents. She does such a fantastic job of making you invested in the town and feel for the characters you're rooting for or against them. You truly get that small town, long history, long family history connections between all the characters in this. I also really enjoyed the way that she allowed you to learn more about how logging works, how people log, the effects on the terrain, the effects on the water, or using sprays and getting in your water and how water runs down, or if you log too much, it might collapse and cause kids. We had kids fighting, so we had to take a little break. Not really sure where I left off. But anyways, I think she did a great job with really getting you invested in the characters. Historical fiction is never really a favorite for me. It can usually be pretty hit or miss. A lot of times I'm like, I don't really hate it or love it, but I really did enjoy this and I would recommend. The Ghostwriter by Julia Clark. This was part of my book of the month vlog. I did enjoy this, but the farther I am from it, the more I'm a little let down in the sense that I think I wanted, I don't know, because I did enjoy reading this. This is following Olivia as her father is this really famous writer. She's a ghostwriter, a lot for memoirs, really for speaking out on women. But her father is this really famous horror writer. But in his past, he was kind of the prime suspect, although like charged with the murder of his siblings because one day his brother and sister were found dead and he was the only sibling surviving. This is not an over the top, like she's trying to figure out what's going on because now she's been asked to go ghostwrite his memoir. She thinks it's going to be fiction, turns out it's memoirs. So now she has this chance to figure out kind of what happened. It's nothing that's like jump out at you, somebody's coming for you, but there is a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of mystery. You get to see things through Poppy's diary entries. You get to see things through her story or her videos and her learning more about her family and what happened. It doesn't leave off in this perfect 100% way, which I think is interesting. I think it's well done. The last one I read is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Full disclosure, I finished this today, like a couple of hours ago. And I feel like this is one that I'm needing more time to sit with. And I say that because I keep going back to, I feel like I just read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. However, towards the end that changes. But this is following 3 different women in like 3 different timelines and they all become vampires. They don't call themselves vampires, but that's what they are. I think the story premise is good. You're seeing how these 3 different women from 3 different times, how these 3 women's lives all interconnect and tie together, which I think is really well done. I think what keeps coming back to me is you're watching these women as they don't want to get married. They want to travel the world and experience life. And they're doing that, how they're going to survive over a long period of time in the world when the world's not set up for that. However, people can remember them now versus Invisible Life, they couldn't. I still had a good time with this. I still enjoyed it, but just for some reason, I would read it and be like, oh, I see a lot of comparisons to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And I don't know. I want to sit with it for a minute before I truly like feel like I know. Is that like, when I think back on this, am I going to tie those together? Or after I sit with it for a day, will I tie it to its own thing? So I feel like I'm still a little up in the air. That is it for all the books we read in the month of July. We did have a really good reading month, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye, witches.